The Academy's lecture hall was alive with noise. Voices echoed off the high walls, bouncing between holographic displays that floated like small stars in the air. Cadets from dozens of planets were gathered, some tall and spindly with translucent skin, others short and stout with tough, scaly hides. Each of them looked around nervously, trying to understand the others. Their eyes flicked to the human instructor, Anna Carter, who stood at the front of the room with a calm expression and a tablet in her hands. She seemed ordinary, almost small compared to some of the larger alien cadets, but there was a quiet confidence in the way she held herself. Anna cleared her throat and slowly the chatter began to die down. "Good morning," she said, her voice firm but friendly. "Today we're going to do a test. But it's not a test of strength or speed or even knowledge. This is a test of how you handle the unexpected." The cadets shifted in their seats. Many of the aliens looked skeptical. Some whispered to each other in their strange languages, curious about what the human meant. They were used to structured tests, calculations, combat simulations, logic puzzles, but something in the way Anna spoke suggested that this would be different. Liam, a human cadet sitting near the back, leaned over to Sophie and whispered, "Finally, something interesting." He grinned, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Sophie rolled her eyes but smiled. "I have a feeling she's not joking. This is going to be harder than anything they've thrown at us before." Ethan, sitting nearby, nodded quietly. He was always the calm one, rarely showing excitement, but the corner of his mouth hinted at his curiosity. Anna raised her hand, and the room went completely silent. Even the aliens seemed to feel the change in her tone. "The world you come from, or the planets you come from, have prepared you in different ways. Some of you are used to strict rules. Some of you are used to danger. Some of you are used to comfort. But here, in this academy, we are going to see how you respond when those expectations fail. That is the real test." A murmur ran through the room. One of the younger alien cadets, a thin creature with wide eyes named Tilo, raised a hand. "Instructor Carter, what kind of failure? What do you mean exactly?" Anna smiled faintly. "I mean the kind of failure you cannot predict. When the ground shifts beneath you, the air changes, the tools you rely on suddenly stop working. When everything you expect to happen does not happen. That is the moment we want to see clearly." Some of the aliens blinked. A few scoffed quietly. "This is nonsense," muttered one with dark green skin and 3 small eyes. "Humans think they are special. We all survive harsh conditions. This is just another exercise." Anna tilted her head slightly but said nothing. She let the words hang in the air for a moment, letting the room feel the weight of the challenge before her. Then, without another word, she tapped her tablet, and the first holographic display flickered to life. It showed a 3-dimensional map of a simulated environment. Mountains, rivers, and strange terrain that shifted slowly as if alive. "Your task will be to navigate through this environment," Anna explained. "You will encounter obstacles, some visible, some hidden. You will need to adapt. Use your mind, your instincts, and your creativity. Success is not measured by speed alone, but by how well you survive and adapt." The alien cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Many had trained for physical challenges, but the look in Anna's eyes suggested that raw power would not be enough. The human cadets, on the other hand, leaned forward in their seats, excitement growing. Liam whispered to Sophie, "This is what I've been waiting for. Finally, a real challenge." Sophie nodded, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. "I know. The others might think it's easy, but it won't be. It never is." Ethan, always more observant than talkative, studied the holographic map with quiet focus. He noticed subtle patterns in the terrain that even the display did not highlight, the way certain paths narrowed unexpectedly, the strange glow of some areas suggesting danger, and the flow of energy through the environment. It was subtle, but he knew it might be important. Anna continued, "I will watch. I will note your responses. This is not a race and it is not a simple puzzle. It is a test of endurance, intellect, and adaptability. Be ready for anything." A heavy silence filled the room after her words. The cadets felt it, the tension of the unknown. Some aliens shifted in their seats, whispering among themselves. Tilo, the young alien, looked worried. "How can we prepare for something we do not understand?" he asked quietly. Anna's gaze swept the room. "You cannot prepare for this in the traditional sense. That is the point. You may rely on what you know, but the world, especially the worlds humans call home, are not predictable. Adapt and you survive. Fail to adapt and you learn too late." The human cadets exchanged quiet smiles. Liam stretched his fingers, feeling the adrenaline rise in his veins. "We're ready," he muttered. Sophie nodded. More than ready. Ethan simply adjusted his seat and exhaled, steady as ever, but there was a spark of anticipation in his eyes. Anna tapped her tablet again and the lecture hall lights dimmed slightly. Holographic barriers appeared around the room, transforming it into a miniature simulation space. Suddenly the air felt heavier, and the subtle scent of ozone filled their noses. Some aliens recoiled instinctively. Others tried to maintain calm, but their eyes betrayed the tension they felt. Anna spoke softly, almost to herself, but loud enough for the humans near her to hear. This is why humans are different. They thrive where others falter. They see chaos as a puzzle to solve, not as an obstacle to fear. The aliens murmured among themselves, some with frustration, others with curiosity. How can a species so small survive so much? One whispered. Surely it is luck, nothing more. Anna ignored the comment. She had seen it too many times before. Luck had nothing to do with it. Humans were shaped by survival, by danger, by worlds that demanded creativity and resilience. That was why they were so hard to predict, so difficult to break. As the cadets prepared to enter the simulation, Liam adjusted his gloves, checking their fit. Sophie tested her boots' traction on the smooth floor, while Ethan examined a corner of the room where energy pulses flickered faintly. They were humans and instinctively they scanned, adapted and calculated, all without fear. Anna stepped aside, letting the cadets take their places. She watched them closely. Remember, she said, this is not about being perfect. It is about responding when nothing goes right. That is the true measure of strength. The aliens exchanged worried glances. Some looked ready to complain, but most fell silent, feeling the seriousness of the moment. Humans, however, felt the thrill of the unknown. Liam grinned. Sophie exhaled sharply, a mix of excitement and focus. Ethan simply nodded. Anna smiled faintly, her eyes scanning the room one last time. Let the test begin, she said. And with that, the first barrier dissolved, revealing the start of the simulation. A world that shifted and changed with every step, a challenge designed to see who could truly adapt, survive and thrive. The cadets were guided into the simulation chamber by a pair of instructors. The doors closed behind them with a hiss and the room shifted instantly. A wave of heat hit them first, thick and suffocating, making some of the alien cadets cough and stumble. Then just as quickly, a sudden chill swept through the chamber, making their limbs stiff and bodies tense. Before anyone could adjust, the floor beneath them tilted, and gravity seemed to pulse unevenly, throwing some cadets off balance. The aliens panicked immediately. One small, orange-skinned cadet named Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her head as she tried to adjust to the fluctuating gravity. Another, tall and thin with 4 arms, froze mid-step, staring blankly at the ceiling as if trying to will himself to move. Their instincts, shaped by structured training and predictable environments, failed them in this chaos. Anna Carter, standing at the edge of the chamber, observed quietly. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual, but her eyes were sharp, following every movement of the cadets. Stay focused, she called out, her voice calm and steady. Look for patterns. Improvise. React to what the environment gives you, not what you expect it to give you. The human cadets moved with a surprising ease that contrasted sharply with the struggling aliens. Liam spotted a loose panel above the floor where gravity shifted most violently. Without hesitation, he pried it free and used it as a shield, blocking falling debris from a small fissure that had opened in the chamber floor. The panel wasn't perfect, but it worked, buying him a few precious seconds. Sophie noticed a corridor filled with a dense, greenish gas that made the alien cadets gag. Most of them avoided it entirely, fearful of what it might do to their bodies. Sophie, however, examined the flow of the gas and traced a path along the walls where the concentration was weaker. She carefully moved along that path, guiding another cadet, a young alien named Tilo who had been too nervous to act. Together, they reached the far side of the gas without inhaling enough to harm them. Even Ethan, who had seemed clumsy during classroom exercises, surprised everyone. A logic puzzle appeared as part of the simulation. 3 holographic doors, each with a sequence of symbols that needed to be solved in the right order. Aliens hesitated, staring at the doors, muttering calculations to themselves, but their hands shook as they tried to input sequences. Ethan calmly stepped forward, observed the symbols for a few seconds, and recognized a pattern the others had missed. With a few simple motions he unlocked the correct door, earning a quiet, impressed look from Anna. The chamber continued to shift unpredictably. A wall suddenly extended across part of the room, forcing the cadets to climb over or find another path. Small geysers of scalding steam erupted from the floor, and puddles of freezing water appeared where the heat had once been. The alien cadets reacted with fear, hesitating and losing valuable time. Some panicked entirely, screaming or flailing as they tried to find stable ground. The humans, by contrast, remained focused. Liam adapted to the shifting walls by testing which sections could hold his weight. He jumped and climbed with careful calculation, adjusting his balance constantly as gravity changed. Sophie helped other cadets navigate treacherous paths, pointing out small footholds and ledges that were stable. Ethan solved environmental puzzles in real time, such as activating switches to redirect moving platforms so cadets could cross gaps safely. Anna's eyes followed them with quiet satisfaction. This was what she had expected. Humans had evolved in environments that were unpredictable, harsh, and often deadly. They had learned to thrive in situations that required constant adaptation. Where aliens faltered in chaos, humans saw opportunity and solutions. One of the aliens, a creature with mottled blue skin named Reth, let out a frustrated cry as a heavy panel fell in front of him. He froze, unsure whether to try moving it or retreat. Liam, noticing Reth's struggle, quickly moved a loose beam to wedge under the panel, lifting it just enough for Reth to pass. The alien stared at Liam, wide-eyed, clearly unaccustomed to such practical, on-the-spot problem-solving from another being. The room continued to test them relentlessly. Gravity shifted again, tilting the floor at impossible angles. Steam vents hissed unpredictably, forcing cadets to dodge quickly. Strange holographic predators appeared, snapping and clawing at cadets who got too close. Some aliens panicked and ran in the wrong direction, colliding with walls or each other. Others froze, paralyzed by indecision. The humans moved with precision. Liam jumped and dodged the holographic predators, guiding others out of their path. Sophie took a small piece of debris and used it to redirect a falling object, protecting a struggling alien from injury. Ethan calculated the timing of moving platforms and ran ahead to activate them at exactly the right moment, allowing the slower cadets to cross safely. Anna observed silently, making notes on her tablet. She noticed patterns in human behavior that the aliens could not replicate. They worked together naturally, communicated with gestures and simple words, and adapted instantly when conditions changed. They did not panic even when the room's chaos reached a peak. Where aliens hesitated and faltered, humans acted, learned, and corrected mistakes on the fly. Tilo, the young alien, followed Sophie cautiously. "How are you so calm?" he asked, his voice shaking. "This place, it's terrifying." Sophie smiled reassuringly. "We're used to chaos. We've learned that panicking doesn't help. You watch, you think, and you act. That's all." Liam shouted over the roar of shifting walls and hissing vents, "Keep moving. Don't stop. Look for what works, not what scares you." Even the instructors were impressed. The aliens were strong, intelligent, and trained, but they were accustomed to structured challenges. This room offered none of that. Humans were almost always trained for survival in environments where rules changed constantly: storms, unstable terrain, predators, and scarcity. This made them nearly impossible to predict or break in a test like this. As the cadets moved further into the chamber, the obstacles became more complex. A narrow bridge appeared above a pool of steaming liquid, vibrating with unstable energy. Most aliens froze, unable to cross safely. Liam assessed it quickly, testing the vibration and balance. He found a rhythm and dashed across, helping Reth and Tilo follow behind him. Sophie used a small piece of broken pipe to stabilize a weak section of the bridge, allowing the cadets behind her to pass safely. Even Ethan, who had started quietly, now led several cadets in solving a puzzle that controlled the room's environmental flow. Pressing symbols in the correct sequence redirected the gravity shifts temporarily, giving the group a moment of stability. The aliens watched, confused, as the humans turned unpredictable chaos into manageable steps. Anna's expression softened slightly. "This is what I hoped to see," she murmured. Humans weren't just responding, they were anticipating. They weren't afraid to fail because they knew failure was part of learning. Aliens, on the other hand, often froze at the first sign of something unexpected. The simulation continued to throw new challenges at them. Walls moved, floors tilted, steam and gas erupted, and holographic predators multiplied. Yet the humans pressed on, their focus never wavering. Liam, Sophie, and Ethan became a team without needing to speak much. Each of them knew instinctively where the others would go, what dangers they might face, and how to handle them. By the end of the first cycle, the humans had navigated almost the entire chamber, helping struggling cadets along the way. Many aliens were still stuck in place, dazed and frustrated. Tilo, once trembling and fearful, reached the end of the simulation with Sophie's help, his expression a mix of relief and awe. Anna stepped forward as the chamber stabilized. "Well done," she said. Her voice carried across the room, calm but commanding. "Not everyone finished. Not everyone even tried. But those of you who adapted, you did more than survive. You solved the impossible." The aliens looked around, some embarrassed, others thoughtful. They had underestimated humans. They had assumed strength and training would guarantee success. But they had overlooked adaptability, ingenuity, and resilience, qualities that humans had in abundance. Liam wiped sweat from his brow, smiling at Sophie and Ethan. "That was amazing," he said. "I didn't think it would be this chaotic." Sophie laughed, though it was tired. "It's just like home," she said. "Except, maybe a little more organized." Ethan shook his head, quietly observing the aliens around them. "They don't understand how we think," he said. "They try to follow rules. We make rules work for us." Anna watched them, satisfaction clear in her eyes. This was the lesson she had wanted them to learn. Humans were different because they could improvise under pressure, survive where others might fail, and act decisively in chaos. That combination of courage, intelligence, and resilience was what made them nearly impossible to break. And the test had only just begun. The chamber had barely begun to settle when everything changed. A low hum filled the air, and the floor tilted violently beneath the cadets' feet. Gravity doubled in strength, pressing them down like a heavy weight. Alien cadets gasped and struggled to lift their limbs. Some slipped, sliding across the floor as if it were ice. Others simply froze, unable to decide which way to move without risking injury. The air thickened and a pale, toxic mist crept along the floor, curling like smoke around the cadets' ankles. Its acrid smell made some aliens cough violently, while others waved their hands trying to breathe through it. The holographic predators, which had once been occasional distractions, now prowled constantly. They slithered and snapped, appearing where the cadets least expected them, forcing sudden evasive maneuvers. Panic spread like wildfire. Lyra, the small orange-skinned cadet, shrieked and dove behind a wall, shaking uncontrollably. Reth, the blue-skinned cadet, attempted to leap across a narrow bridge, only to miscalculate the tilt and crash into a vent, sending steam bursting around him. Even Tilo, normally cautious, began to tremble, his eyes wide with fear. Amid the chaos, the human cadets moved with surprising calm. Liam spotted a panel falling from above, knocked loose by the sudden shift in gravity. Without hesitation, he darted forward, catching it just in time and holding it over a smaller alien cadet who had frozen in fear. The weight of the panel threatened to crush Liam's hands, but he gritted his teeth and held it steady, shielding the cadet until the floor beneath them stabilized enough for her to crawl away safely. Sophie scanned the chamber quickly, her mind working faster than her eyes could follow. 2 cadets, one green-skinned and one gray, were trapped on a narrow ledge with steam hissing beneath them. Sophie grabbed their hands, guiding them step by step along a safer route she had noticed earlier. She leaned close, shouting instructions over the roar of shifting walls and the growls of holographic predators. "Left foot here. Hold the railing. Don't look down." Ethan, meanwhile, had reached a control panel that blinked with red and yellow warning lights. The chamber's environmental systems had gone haywire. Gravity, temperature, and toxic mist all fluctuated beyond the expected parameters. He studied the controls, analyzing the sequences and the effect each lever would have. With careful movements, he rerouted the chamber's power, stabilizing a corridor just long enough for the cadets behind him to escape the immediate danger. Anna watched from the side, her tablet recording every movement. She muttered under her breath, a note to herself more than anyone else. This is why humans are nearly impossible to break. She had expected some improvisation, some creative thinking, but the humans' speed, calm, and precision in this chaos exceeded even her predictions. Alien instincts, while strong, were linear. They relied on predictable environments, on rules, on experience. Humans ignored those limitations. They acted, adapted, and thrived in unpredictability. The chamber's floor tilted again, this time to a dangerous 90-degree angle, turning it into a near-vertical wall. Some of the alien cadets attempted to climb, only to slide back down, slipping and banging into each other. Lyra screamed as she tried to hold on to a loose support beam, but her limbs were trembling too violently. Liam and Sophie were already moving, reaching out to grab her before she fell. Liam held her firmly as Sophie anchored herself and the other cadets along the wall. Ethan worked quickly, adjusting the chamber's holographic controls to create temporary footholds on the tilted floor. The holographic predators lunged toward the cadets, but Ethan triggered a distraction. a light pulse that made the predators pause, giving the aliens a chance to move past. The coordination among the humans was instinctive. Liam caught falling debris for those who couldn't move fast enough, Sophie guided cadets along the safest paths, and Ethan manipulated the environment to create stability where none existed. Some alien cadets began to panic completely. One three-armed creature slipped into a puddle of freezing water and shouted in alarm. Another, covered in thick purple scales, froze mid-jump, unsure whether to move forward or retreat. Their minds raced to apply strategies that had worked in training, but the constantly changing chamber rendered every plan useless. Liam's voice cut through the chaos. "Keep moving. Don't stop. Look for what works." His tone was firm but calm, carrying just enough authority that the cadets around him listened. Even in the confusion, a few aliens followed his lead, feeling safer with his guidance. Sophie noticed a narrow path above a rapidly rising pool of toxic mist. Without hesitation, she pointed and shouted instructions, leading Tilo and another cadet across. She balanced carefully, gripping the edge with one hand while extending the other to pull them along. The mist reached their knees, but Sophie's careful calculation ensured they didn't inhale enough to be harmed. Ethan's fingers flew across the controls again. He reprogrammed the environmental systems to reduce the mist temporarily, giving the cadets a moment to regain their balance. He then activated a small section of floor that had been unstable, creating a safe passage over a rapidly tilting corridor. Anna's eyes followed them, impressed by every move. She noted the humans' patterns, how they communicated without words, how they adapted to each new challenge instantly, and how they turned chaos into manageable steps. Aliens were strong, intelligent, and trained, but they were linear thinkers. Humans, shaped by unpredictable worlds, were problem solvers, improvisers, and resilient beyond measure. A holographic predator lunged at Liam as he helped another cadet over a broken platform. He ducked and kicked it aside, but it bounced and struck the platform, sending debris tumbling toward the cadets below. Liam reacted instantly, grabbing a falling beam and holding it up like a shield. The cadets behind him scrambled to safety, grateful for his quick thinking. Sophie turned to help another cadet, and in that moment, Ethan noticed a small control panel flickering dangerously. He ran forward, tapping sequences that stabilized a section of floor just in time. The cadets crossed without incident, but the aliens nearby struggled to comprehend how humans could adapt so fast. Even the youngest cadets, normally timid, followed the humans' lead. Tilo, once frozen with fear, began to move with purpose, trusting Sophie and Liam to guide him. He stumbled, almost falling into a pool of steaming liquid, but Sophie caught his arm in time. His face was pale, but his eyes shone with awe. The chamber continued to test them relentlessly. Gravity shifted again, panels fell, steam hissed from vents, and the holographic predators multiplied. Many alien cadets were trapped, some sliding into walls, others frozen in indecision. But the humans pressed on, their minds and bodies working together as a single unit. Anna's voice was calm but firm as she addressed the humans. "Observe, adapt, and act. That is the key. You are not just surviving, you are solving problems." She smiled faintly to herself. No one else could do this the way they do. By the time the chamber began to stabilize slightly, the humans had helped several alien cadets escape the worst dangers. Liam, Sophie, and Ethan stood together, panting slightly but still alert, scanning the room for any new threats. The aliens looked around, stunned and exhausted, realizing how far behind they had fallen. Anna made a final note in her tablet. "This is why humans are nearly impossible to break. They improvise when no one else can. They act when everyone else freezes. And they keep moving when chaos should stop them." The chamber's lights dimmed slightly as the simulation paused for the next sequence. The alien cadets collapsed into corners, shaking and trying to catch their breath. Humans, however, were calm, confident, and ready for whatever came next. They had faced near-impossible challenges and had turned them into manageable problems. Anna watched them quietly, a sense of pride in her chest. This was more than a test. It was a demonstration of what humans were capable of: resilient, clever, and nearly unbreakable. And she knew that the rest of the simulation would only make that clearer. The simulation ended with a sudden silence. The room, once filled with shifting walls, hissing vents, and holographic predators, was now still. The cadets stumbled out of the chamber into the debrief room, their clothes damp, their faces pale, and their eyes wide with exhaustion. Some aliens leaned against the walls, trying to recover, while others sank to the floor, shaking from the intense stress. Anna Carter waited calmly at the front of the room, her tablet in hand as the cadets filed in. She had watched everything closely, recorded every move, and noted every decision made under pressure. The human cadets, Liam, Sophie, and Ethan, entered last, slightly sweaty but composed. Their movements were steady, their expressions clear, even after the chaos they had just endured. The alien instructors were stunned. They had watched simulations before. They had prepared for nearly every scenario. But nothing they had trained for had prepared them for what they had just witnessed. Aliens who were usually confident, precise, and quick to act were now pale and trembling. Many admitted silently that they had never faced such a combination of shifting hazards and unpredictable challenges. Anna began to speak. Observe what you have just seen. The humans in this room, Liam, Sophie, Ethan, and their peers, did not just survive. They adapted. They improvised. They found solutions under extreme pressure when the environment was hostile and unpredictable. She paused and let the words sink in. The aliens looked around, some still unable to comprehend how the humans had managed it. One alien instructor, tall with golden skin, whispered to a colleague, "How do they move so calmly? How do they see what to do when everything changes like that?" Anna continued, addressing both the cadets and the instructors. Humans evolved on worlds that demanded constant adaptation. Their survival depended on it. Every challenge they faced, every risk they took, taught them to endure, to observe, and to act even when everything seemed impossible. A young alien cadet named Tari, his greenish-gray skin shimmering faintly in the dim light, frowned as he stepped forward. His eyes were wide, but doubt shone in them. "Instructor Carter," he said, voice hesitant, "it looks like luck. They got through because something just happened to go right. Isn't that just chance?" Anna shook her head slowly. "No, Tari. It is not luck. You can call it that if you like, but it is not. Human success comes from ingenuity, from their ability to see possibilities where others see only danger. It comes from resilience. They can fail, make mistakes, and still recover. They try again differently until they succeed. That is why you cannot predict them. That is why they are so hard to break." Tari looked unconvinced. "But how can failing so many times lead to success? Most of us would give up after the first few mistakes." Anna smiled faintly. "That is exactly the difference. Humans are not easily discouraged. Their worlds force them to endure repeated failure. If they gave up at the first obstacle, they would not survive long enough to reproduce. Over generations, they learned to treat failure as a step toward a solution, not as an end." Another cadet, a tall, spindly creature with blue skin named Kilo, spoke next. "But the environment was dangerous. The gravity, the predators, the toxic mist. We were trained for that and many of us failed. How did they succeed so easily?" Anna gestured toward the human cadets. "Notice how they act in groups. Notice how they communicate even with minimal words or gestures. Notice how they use what is around them, panels, pipes, walls, platforms, as tools. And notice how they do not freeze under pressure. They analyze, they adjust, they act. You might see it as luck, but it is not. It is a learned, instinctive ability shaped by evolution and experience." Liam leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "It's not just about acting fast," he said quietly. "It's about noticing patterns. About predicting what might happen next even when everything seems random. You can't just rush into it." Sophie added, "And it's about helping others. We move as a team. We watch for each other. That's part of why we survive, because we're ready to act for more than just ourselves." Ethan, as usual, spoke last, calmly but with authority. "We're used to chaos. That's what survival teaches you. You have to think, adapt, and act even when conditions are impossible. Fear slows you down. Hesitation can kill you. That's why humans are prepared for situations most species would fail in." Anna nodded approvingly at her students. "Exactly. Humans are not stronger than every alien species. They are not faster and they do not have the sharpest senses. What they have is flexibility, ingenuity, and resilience. They turn chaos into opportunity. And that is why, in situations like today's, they are nearly impossible to break." The alien cadets listened, still in disbelief. Some were thoughtful, nodding slowly as they tried to understand what they had witnessed. Others were frustrated, their pride hurt by the humans' ability to adapt so naturally to conditions they themselves had trained for. Tari, still frowning, raised another question. "But surely this cannot be common. You said humans evolved on harsh worlds, but we have studied other dangerous species that also survive extreme conditions. How are humans different?" Anna's eyes gleamed with quiet certainty. "Because humans do more than survive. They learn constantly, they improvise constantly. They treat failure as a teacher, not a punishment. Most dangerous species rely on instinct alone, or brute strength or pre-programmed strategies. Humans combine intelligence, creativity, and experience in real time. That combination is rare, perhaps unique. Kilo muttered under his breath, clearly trying to understand. So, it is not our training that fails but the way we think? We try to follow patterns and they ignore them entirely. Yes, Anna said. Patterns can help, but rigid adherence to them can fail when the world does not follow the rules. Humans adapt. They see the rules, bend them, or ignore them when necessary. That is why even a simple classroom test can reveal so much. That is why simulations like today's are revealing not just strength or speed, but something much deeper: resilience and adaptability. The alien instructors exchanged glances. Some were silent, stunned, trying to comprehend what they had seen. Others were muttering notes to themselves, clearly already thinking about how they might adjust their training programs. Humans had shown that raw power and structured strategy could be outmatched by flexibility and clever thinking. Tari looked down, ashamed. I didn't understand. I thought the humans just got lucky, but now I see, they planned, adapted, and acted. They survived because they could adjust at every moment. Anna gave a small, approving nod. Exactly, Tari. What you call luck is actually preparation, experience, and instinct combined. They fail, learn, and fail again without giving up. That is why humans are resilient. That is why they are nearly impossible to break. The human cadets, watching quietly, felt no pride or arrogance. They had done what they had been trained to do instinctively. Chaos was familiar to them. Improvisation was second nature. They knew this was not luck. It was life experience, survival, and constant adaptation built over generations. Anna looked around the room, taking a deep breath. Remember this. Every species has strengths. Some have speed, some strength, some intelligence. Humans have something different. Something subtle, something powerful. They endure. They adapt. They solve when others fail. That is the lesson for today. The cadets, both alien and human, absorbed the words. Even those who had struggled in the simulation began to understand that success was not just about training, it was about the mindset, the ability to keep going, the ingenuity to turn danger into advantage. By the end of the debrief, the room was quiet. Alien cadets were thoughtful, some still shaken, while humans remained composed, confident, and ready for the next challenge. Anna watched them with satisfaction, knowing she had demonstrated a truth that many species underestimated. Humans were not just survivors. They were adaptable, resilient, and clever beyond expectation. She tapped her tablet one last time and whispered to herself, "This is why humans are nearly impossible to break. And the galaxy will learn that soon enough." The cadets left the debrief room slowly, still discussing what had happened. Aliens who had doubted the humans now looked at them with respect, curiosity, and maybe even a little fear. Humans, meanwhile, simply walked with calm determination, ready to face whatever came next. The room was quiet after the long discussion. The alien cadets were still thinking about Anna's words. Some looked doubtful. Others looked curious. A few looked frustrated. Anna noticed all of it. She had expected this reaction. Words alone were never enough. Some lessons had to be felt. She stepped forward and tapped her tablet. A new section of the training floor slid open with a soft mechanical sound. Beyond it stretched a long corridor. The walls were smooth and dark. Small panels lined the sides and faint lights blinked on and off at random. The floor looked uneven and distant mechanical sounds echoed softly through the space. "This will be a small exercise," Anna said calmly. Simple but revealing. The cadets shifted. Some aliens leaned forward, trying to study the corridor. Others pulled back, uneasy. The human cadets remained relaxed, though attentive. "You will navigate this corridor blindfolded," Anna continued. "No visual input. You may only rely on sound, memory, touch, and communication. The path will change while you move. Obstacles will shift. Some will appear. Some will disappear." A low murmur spread through the alien cadets. Tari raised his hand slowly. "Blindfolded?" he asked. "Even humans cannot see without vision." Anna nodded. "Correct. That is the point." She gestured, and a set of simple fabric blindfolds floated out of a dispenser. They were placed gently into the hands of each cadet. "Humans first," Anna said. Liam stepped forward without hesitation. Sophie followed, then Ethan. They stood at the start of the corridor, blindfolds in hand. None of them spoke, but they moved closer together, close enough to feel each other's presence. "Remember," Anna said, "you may help each other. This is not a test of isolation. It is a test of adaptation." The humans tied their blindfolds securely. Darkness covered their eyes. For a moment they stood still, listening. The corridor activated. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Something shifted far ahead. A faint clicking sound echoed from the walls. Air moved in uneven pulses. Liam spoke first, his voice calm. "I hear movement on the left. Slow steps." Sophie nodded even though he could not see it. "Floor slopes slightly down." "I can feel it." Ethan crouched and placed a hand on the ground. "Vibration pattern changes every 3 seconds. We move between pulses." They stepped forward together, slowly. Liam extended one arm outward, brushing the wall lightly. Sophie stayed in the center, counting steps under her breath. Ethan listened carefully, mapping the corridor in his mind. A sudden clank sounded ahead. A panel slid into place. Liam stopped instantly. Obstacle. Waist height. Sophie reached out, touching it carefully. Smooth surface. "We can go under." Ethan adjusted their timing. "Wait. Something is moving above it." They paused. A soft rush of air passed overhead. Then silence. "Now," Ethan said. They moved together, bending low, sliding past the obstacle without touching it. None of them rushed. None of them panicked. Behind them, the alien cadets watched in silence. Some leaned forward. Others whispered in disbelief. The corridor shifted again. A soft grinding sound came from the floor. A section tilted. Sophie felt it immediately. Floor tilting right. Liam adjusted his stance. Wall grip still stable. Ethan placed his foot carefully. 3 steps forward, then stop. They moved. The floor leveled again. They did not move fast, but they moved with purpose. Every sound mattered. Every vibration meant something. Halfway through the corridor, a sudden sharp tone echoed. The sound bounced off the walls, confusing and loud. One alien cadet flinched. Another covered their ears. The humans froze for a split second. "Echo pulse," Ethan said. "Distraction." Liam exhaled slowly. "Ignore it." They waited. The sound faded. Then they continued. At the end of the corridor, a soft chime rang. The lights turned green. The humans removed their blindfolds. They had reached the end without a single mistake. Anna nodded once. "Well done." The humans stepped aside. They did not cheer. They did not boast. To them it had felt normal. Difficult, yes, but familiar. "Aliens next," Anna said. Several alien cadets hesitated. Finally, Tari stepped forward, followed by a few others. They accepted the blindfolds reluctantly. As soon as the corridor activated, the difference was clear. The first alien froze at the entrance, overwhelmed by the lack of vision. Another took a step too fast and stumbled when the floor shifted. A third reached out wildly, bumping into a wall panel that slid suddenly and knocked them backward. "Slow down," Tari said nervously. "Listen." But panic crept in quickly. A sudden sound echoed and one cadet cried out, spinning in place, disoriented. Another tried to move quickly to escape the noise and ran straight into a rising obstacle. They tried again. And again. Each attempt ended the same way. Too much hesitation. Too much fear. Too much reliance on sight that was no longer there. Anna watched carefully. She did not interrupt. Finally, Tari removed his blindfold, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. I didn't expect this," he admitted quietly. Anna stepped closer. "What didn't you expect?" Tari looked toward the humans. That they would be so calm. That they would trust sound and memory so easily. That they would help each other without needing instructions. Liam approached slowly. "We didn't always do this well," he said honestly. "We learned by failing. A lot." Sophie nodded. "On our world we deal with storms, darkness, broken systems. You learn to listen. You learn to remember paths. You learn to trust your team." Ethan added, "Vision is useful, but it is not everything. When you lose it, you adapt." Anna smiled gently. "Humans aren't just survivors," she said. "They are problem solvers under pressure. That's what makes them different." The alien cadets were silent. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked inspired. Tari bowed his head slightly. "We are trained to avoid failure," he said. "You are trained to move through it." Anna nodded. "Yes. Failure teaches humans. Fear sharpens them. Pressure shapes them." She looked around the room. This exercise was small, simple, but it reveals something important. When stripped of comfort, of clear rules, of vision itself, humans do not stop. They adapt. They cooperate. They move forward. The corridor powered down. The lights returned to normal. The cadets slowly began to talk among themselves. Aliens asked humans quiet questions. Humans answered without pride, just honesty. Anna watched them, satisfied. The lesson had landed. And for the first time, many of the alien cadets truly understood why Deathworlders were nearly impossible to break.